Alright guys, TacticalRab again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, Rostermania starts to take new turns with big rumours as to what the Tiny Terrors are going to do over at Atlanta FaZe. Cellium is gone, Drazah is gone, both unrestricted free agents, but Simp and aBeZy still tied down to contracts, but that does not necessarily mean that both of those guys will stay on Atlanta FaZe. Big rumours starting to emerge as to the interest in aBeZy on the market. We're pretty sure for some time now there's been interest on the Falcon side, but another team is potentially throwing their hat in the ring as well. Very much intro to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to start here. Gentlemates, Johnny and Lunarz, they are officially released free agents. There was a rumour that Gentlemates might potentially look to still build around Johnny. They could still do that if they wanted to. They can probably hit him up and say, hey, do you want to come back, if that's the decision that they decide to make. But VOs and the guys that are now running the show over there, they've changed their minds, they've changed their direction, and Kismet is also gone. We know he definitely will be a key name free agent on the market, and the rest of the team is gone as well. Priester, who was there, Skies, who was there early in the season, they are also now free agent as well. But everyone is gone, you know, DiamondCon, FeLo, Johnny, Lunarz, etc. That's a full rebuild. What they're going to do is a question, because typically you see the top teams sort out their rosters, then it trickles down. And that's probably going to be the case again, but often maybe the way it'll work now is instead of top rosters, it's more like the teams with the most money that theoretically should be the top rosters. And Gentlemates do have some bags to throw around. I mean, they tried to get Scrappy and HyDra last year, and they would have probably done so had Najot not taken his big pay cut to get them onto the team and get them a team house. So they could potentially, Gentlemates, throw a bag around and see what they could form for the upcoming year. There's also still talk out there about whether, you know, Ravens are going to get sold, another team are going to come in, what they're going to do. Whatever team that is, if it does happen, you know, it might be too late for them to really get the players that they would like, because, you know, let's be real, over the next couple of weeks, we are going to start to see either big buyouts or big signings start to be solidified by the top teams, so you guys aren't going to want to go anywhere. Linz, I mentioned it yesterday, he is, as he says, he's back. He's starting to feel better after missing the Esports World Cup, as we know. Also, this from Trakes, just to mention, Argentinian player who's moved over to the States to try and make it in the COD scene. He's definitely a talent out there, and he says, free agent for the new season, want to be the first Latin American player to be in the league, and I won't stop until I get there, right? So just one player to keep your eyes on there, because someone that is worth discussing, but again, just so many free agents on the market right now, unrestricted and restricted, as we'll get into. Now, Formal, I don't know what's going to happen here, but he did tweet out the other day kind of like, oh, well, you know, with the Halo stuff coming to an end, maybe I could consider it. Hex is such a flirt. Of course, he wouldn't come back to the OpTic team, right? Even when that was a discussion last year, that was never going to happen. And Formal actually did follow up and say, on a serious note, suck to see Halo end this year for Infinite. Not sure what the plans are going to be after Worlds. We'll cross that bridge once we get there. So he's focused on trying to finish out the season with what's been a great OpTic Halo team. They've got Salt Lake City this upcoming weekend as well. There was a bit of talk even from some people about running a Salt Lake City event for Call of Duty next year. Whether that will happen, I doubt it, but, you know, time will tell. Formal says that he's not going to make a decision on his future, as in return to COD, until after the World Championship, see how he feels. And of course, by that time, you know, most of the teams are going to have players signed, but who knows? Maybe there is a world where Formal could get back in the COD space. This from Slasher, is he going to stay? What's going to happen next? It's a big question. I think the key thing is we don't know what the hell Ravens are doing. Slasher's still there, still contracted, it seems. But if Ravens get sold, what does that mean? Where does it leave Slasher? Is there a spot still out there for a veteran AR player? And I think Slasher was actually pretty damn good at the start of the season, but it fell away pretty dramatically in the mid towards the end of the year. So definitely on the verge of either getting back in or not, I would say. We also have a couple of players from the Omit team. So Mamba says he's actually a restricted free agent. So most of the guys we've mentioned are totally unrestricted, contracts are over. When you've got like the whole Surge team unrestricted, the whole Rocker team unrestricted, Gwinn unrestricted, you know, loads of these players in that situation, they're obviously going to be more attractive for most teams. Now look, not to say that some teams couldn't go out there and look to get these guys, and I don't think the buyout from Omit would be anything dramatic, but at the end of the day, Omit, Rafi and the guys over there, you know, supported these players. They picked them up to their challengers team. They gave them the opportunity. It's understandable they're going to want a bit of a cashback when these guys go to the league. But is it going to restrict members' opportunities to get in? Maybe not, but it could do, right? Like, if I'm a team out there, let's say I'm even FaZe. There was a people discussing, could Mamba and Craze, having beaten FaZe, go to FaZe? And, okay, FaZe, could they cough up the 10k, 5k, I don't even know what the buyout would be to make this happen? Yeah, sure they could, but they could also just sign somebody else for free. So it's a conversation. I don't know exactly what the situation is with Craze, because he just says free agents, so I don't know if that's unrestricted. I'm assuming that it is, because unless they say restricted, typically it means that they're not. So anyway, Craze and Mamba as a duo, they are looking for their next steps, maybe together, maybe separately. There was a bit of talk about this as well, so Scrap tweeted this out. This isn't just a headset, it's a cheat code. And then, well, this is the image anyway. So we've got Scrap here, and then if we look in the background, you'll see, well, I mean, who is this, right, on the far right-hand side? And people were saying, oh, does that look a little bit like Cellium? The funny thing is that this is just Ghosty, right? Like, this is just Ghosty, and his hair's just kind of like that, and I thought it was all rather funny, really. So, yeah, people were like, damn, is this, like, are they picking him up, right? Is Cell already there? Is that MC in the background? But no, pretty sure that is not MC in the background, and yeah, like, yeah, even Ghosty says it's Scrallium in the background looking insane over there. So, it looks like LA Thieves are going to stick it out. That is the current theory, but we will get into some theories on that right about now because, well, Ronnie talked about a few things last night. Jake Hale gave his theories as well on what you do if you're FaZe. It does feel like that Simp is probably going to stay. OpTic aren't going to get him anymore. They're not going to make a change. So, Simp, could he have interest elsewhere? I think absolutely yes, but it feels like actually most of the teams are probably with the realization that Simp's probably going to stay on FaZe, and as a result, you know, he probably is the face of the team, which makes sense, of course he has been, but maybe aBeZy is more gettable or even more desired right now. It's kind of interesting really to look at the teams that tend to want new players. We're going to talk about Vegas, we're going to talk about Toronto in a second. From an SMG perspective, they actually probably need an aBeZy-like player more than they need a Simp-like player. So, for a few reasons, Simp's probably going to stay on FaZe. Could Cellium return? It's possible, but Ronnie says in a second he thinks it's pretty unlikely that Cell comes back. Real is gettable, he's unrestricted free agent, as is Metals. Rencor and Super are still contracted, we think, so there is that, but again, buyout could potentially be a thing. And then there was some talk about Simp and CleanX, because the main theory around Toronto right now is that they're looking to build around JoeDeceives, and that Insight and CleanX as a duo may well be looking for opportunities elsewhere on different teams. So this is what Ronnie comes out with. He does a mailbag, Ronnie mailbag number 1. People sent in some questions, and he gave some responses, and some pretty interesting ones at that. So there's a few questions here we'll go through. The big one really is the first one. So do you think the Tiny Terrors will split? It is very possible. Recent rumours suggest that teams like the Vegas Falcons and Toronto Ultra, are going to be Toronto Koi, whatever, have shown interest in aBeZy, but it appears to be light interest for now. Any potential deal would require a substantial offer. Chris Simp-Lair and aBeZy could very well remain a duo after the off-season, though everything is up in the air and all options remain on the table. So this is pretty interesting, right? Because quite a while ago now, when Vegas put together their team with TJHaLy and they put X into the flex, the going theory was that one of the reasons why they were doing that is because they wanted to try Xnit on the flex so that they could bring in a high-profile SMG after the World Cup was over. And that was theorized to be aBeZy, because on paper, aBeZy and Pred sounds like a pretty scary SMG duo if they're all firing in all cylinders. That makes some sense. Falcons also have the money to do so. And, well, it's a conversation. aBeZy's currently contracted. Falcons may be keen to do it. Apparently, right now, there is some interest, but, you know, potentially there could even be some sort of a bidding war going on. Now, it's very interesting what it means for FaZe. Are Simp and aBeZy against teaming together again? Kind of unlikely, just because of all the success they've had. I mean, they talked about it before that they expected to retire as a duo, right, and just play their whole careers together. That, you know, rarely would actually work out. I felt like it was pretty unlikely at the time when they said it. You know, something eventually happens, and that's what's happened here. Clearly, Cellium isn't going to be there anymore. Certainly not with this duo. Could Cellium return if aBeZy was to go? I don't think that's impossible, but I think it's plausible anyway that this duo, the Tiny Terrors, do break apart, and it'd be really exciting to see how they would get on other teams if that was the case. But the Toronto situation is very compelling, right? Because JoeDeceives is supposedly the man that they're building around on Toronto Ultra for next season, and bringing in aBeZy as well sounds like a very scary SMG duo to me. aBeZy, JoeDeceives looking for 2. I mean, to be honest, you could even keep Insight and CleanX at that point and put CleanX on the flex. That might even be a good idea. But I don't know if that's what they're going to... I mean, it'd be pretty funny, right, if they replace Abe from the World Cup with aBeZy. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's a thought in mind. But did Toronto have the bread like that? I think that's another question, because Falcons clearly do, and Falcons could probably offer aBeZy more money. But, you know, if both teams can pay the buyout, then maybe it becomes more of a decision as to where aBeZy wants to go. And that's a good question, right? I mean, with aBeZy's point in his career, what would you guys do? Let's say Vegas and Toronto are willing to go to FaZe and pay a buyout for aBeZy, whatever that number looks like. Would you go to the Falcons and make more money, or would you want to go to Toronto and team with what could be a better team? I don't know. It's a good question. I guess it depends to some degree on what team the Falcons are actually forming. Are they keeping Exit? Are they bringing in Sib? What does that look like over there? Obviously, they've got Clayster, and aBeZy's got some history with Clay from the United days, so maybe there's something to say about that. But Toronto, the last couple of years, they've had strange off-seasons when, you know, Inside last year was a total free agent, and then they brought him back anyway. Scrap was put under contract jail for a bit of time, so I don't really know. But maybe Toronto coy with the changes they're making. Maybe they've got more money to play with this season. It's maybe not impossible. So there was a bit of talk as well about Cellium, and he was asked, do you believe this is the end of the trio? Do you think they'll rotate players? Ronnie says, I'd say the chances of Cellium returning are very low. What do you think it'll take for Surge to remain top 4? They'd need to keep things together, but you know, CleanX and Afro potentially available, but the issue is that their players might just leave, right? And they might go somewhere else. So that's a big question. Players generally should choose the OpTic offer, which of course makes sense. Shotzzy's urging them to join OpTic. Like, unless Falcons are offering like 10 times the salary, it's kind of difficult to turn down an OpTic offer. It does happen. So this is what he says on the FaZe stuff. I suspect at least a 2-man change is coming. I wouldn't rule out a 3-man overhaul either. It depends on how bold FaZe wants to be. As of now, Cell and Drazah are officially out. There's reportedly interest in aBeZy. That would leave Simp to hit the rebuild. At this moment, I don't believe Thieves are looking to make any roster changes, although that could shift quickly. I doubt that their management is going to be willing to pay buyouts after their significant spending, which is a good point, right? Because if you're Thieves, you know, you've spent a lot of money last off-season. I don't know if they've necessarily got the bread to go and get Simp and or aBeZy. So, you know, there are options that are free. Drazah, although good luck with that with Scrappy on the team. Cell, maybe. Neptune, you know, somebody from Surge, not impossible, right? Neptune and HyDra have some history too on the New York team a couple of years ago that didn't end well, but, you know, maybe there's something in that. So I think if Thieves aren't going to do anything, they're going to do something from players that are potentially available right now. But yeah, definitely intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments. He mentioned some standout targets for FaZe, potentially Neptune, CleanX, 04, Real, players like that, whether they're going to keep Xnid around or not, and what Minnesota Rocker are potentially going to do. Pretty interesting, he mentions Major Maniac, potentially Dereal, because it feels like maybe they might decide to make a change at the top level there over at the Minnesota Rocker, but very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. I know that Sid was tweeting this out as well, which I don't really know what this is meant to mean, but he's chilling anyways, waiting around to see what time will tell, because he's currently playing for Cloud9, but maybe there's opportunities on the Falcons that could arise. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think the future is going to be for aBeZy? Should he stay on FaZe with Simp? Is that what FaZe should do? Or if one of those other teams does give him a good offer, I think the Falcons offer is likely, if they do go for it, to be very compelling, right? I mean, Falcons could pay the buyouts. They could offer him a lot of money. You know, Pred, aBeZy sounds like a good SMG duo, but if I'm aBeZy, I'm probably looking at the situation with JoeDeceives and I'm saying, well, you know, maybe that could be more attractive depending on what the rest of the team looks like. And there's some benefits to that, there's some cons to that, and maybe it's not a decision that he's going to easily be able to make, but we also know that the salaries and the amount of money that FaZe have to play with is not necessarily very strong compared to a team like the Falcons. Kaysun said the other day that effectively you can't compete with oil money. So that's the situation as we currently understand it. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
I was like, I want it, bruh. I said it.
They were like, you can't do it, defending champions, and like, just, you didn't directly beat him.
I wanted it, chat. I wanted it.
Just know that.
I wanted to get that. I wanted, and then tweet out, what have I done?
I actually love Zach, though. Like, I think Zach takes it well.
But I'm not, because me and Zach were texting each other after. He's like, was I that AIDS after we fucking, every time you beat us? Or every time they would beat us? I was like, yeah. Every time. Made a roster change. What have I done? I'm like, bro, now it's time. It's going full circle, bro.